Hello everyone, welcome to Scarecrow Miniature Painting. This is part 2 of our Flying with Zenithal Highlights series. If you watched the last episode of the series, which I highly recommend doing, we did a brush on Zenithal highlighting of this Aarakocra and this Harpy. Now I'm really impressed with how they both turned out, so let's get on to base coating. Just like we would do with any other miniature, we are going to base coat it in a thinned down paint. So for example, the Aarakocra is going to get a thinned down leather brown. And then the Harpy, I grabbed the wrong paint, is going to get a thinned down barbarian flesh. Now if you've seen my prior videos, you'll know that typically when we're doing our highlights, we're going to use 3 paints to kind of level that out. We're still going to do that, but the reason we're using barbarian flesh is because we're going to do our highest highlight with demonic yellow. And the reason that is because we're going to make her hair blonde, and I'm going to show you how to achieve that effect as well. With that being said, let's get right on into the video. So first and foremost, we're going to do the Aarakocra. However, let me grab my matte black. The reason I'm grabbing my matte black here is because after looking over the Harpy, there was a little spot, you can see it on the figure right there, on the thigh, that wasn't painted properly. So we are going to paint that over real quick. We're just going to take one little tiny dot of matte black. We're going to thin that down to get the desired effect. Then we're just going to go in there with a fine tip brush and paint that up. So I'm actually going to use my angle brush for this. The reason I'm using my angle brush is because of the fact that it has that concaved angle. I'm trying to get the stopper off, or the protector off. But the protector is not wanting to come off, so I'm going to have to do it a different way. So I'm trying not to damage the bristles. Because once you damage those bristles, it makes painting with that brush harder. There we go. It did damage them a little bit, but I can form those back into place. So we're just going to thin down our black ever so lightly. We're going to take that brush. We're going to mix that up. We're going to take a little bit of that black. And we're going to not drop the miniature. We're just going to go in there and lightly paint around that spot, because we're trying not to diminish the Zenithal highlighting we did do. And there we have that. So I'm going to clean that off real quick. We are done with this brush for now. There might be another video or two where we do have to use it, but typically I don't use angled brushes all too often. Now, I'm just trying to decide what brush I want to use next. I want to use my 0. And we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna use that on leather brown. That's matte black. I do not want to use it on matte black. I want to use it on leather brown. So if you all saw the last video, you know we are painting a Zenithal highlighted miniature. With Zenithal highlighting, the key takeaway with it is that the angle that you painted it is going to be the angle that the light is coming from. So for instance, the Aarakocra, we kind of painted it in more of a downward angle. I want to thin that down just a little bit more because that's still pretty thick. We want, with Zenithal highlighting, you want it to be almost a wash. And the reason you want it to be almost a wash is because you want all of that shadow to still be present. And we're going to start from the top down. So I chose brown for the Aarakocra's wings and base coat because we are going to be painting this Aarakocra a very specific way. We are going to be painting him like the American, what's the bird's name? American Crestle. And the reason we decided on that is because I was listening to, or I was reading the comments, and a few of you mentioned how you would like to see more vibrancy in the miniatures. And I thought the best way to achieve that would be, one, a Zenithal highlight, and two, with this figure specifically, because we can get the most, I was searching up images last night for the most, what's the word I'm looking for, vibrant bird of prey. Because when you look at an Aarakocra, it has all the characteristics of a bird of prey. It doesn't have the characteristics of anything else. Now, you could say that some of its characteristics do look more eagle-ish instead of Crestle, which is perfectly fine. You can make your Aarakocra however you want, but we chose the Crestle specifically for that vibrancy. And we are going to be doing the entire body in this. The reason we're going to be doing the entire body in the brown is because I want to get as much of that brown on it, because he's going to have a little bit of leather armor. He's going to have a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? He's got some wood on him, and it's going to be a little bit easier to do the detailing of the whites or the off-whites and the almost gray blues that the American Crestle has, which is why we chose that specific bird of prey. I wanted to do as detailed as possible, and I keep calling the figure a he, and there's a reason for that. So Crestles have dimorphism. For those that don't know what dimorphism is, it's when one member of the species looks different than the opposite sex. For instance, emus are dimorphism. The females have a more bland color palette, whereas the males have that bright white chest. Now, if I did get that reversed, please let me know in the comments, because I would really like to make sure that I did get that information accurate. But we are just painting over him in this base coat of leather brown. And you can already see on there the shadow that is being applied to it. That is why we did the Zenithal highlighting. Now, Zenithal highlighting is one of my personal favorite ways to achieve effects, because you can get many different effects from it, such as this one. Now, just like with any other miniature, we are going to do 2 coats of the base coat. The reason we want to do that is because we thinned that paint down. We also want to give a little bit more detail to the figure, and that's the best way to do it. When you thin down those paints, all the detail starts to show through, and you begin to get an idea of what you are working with. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, Steven, you said that we are doing a more vibrant bird of prey. Why are we doing it in a brown? That's a dull color. So the reason we're doing the brown is, if you look at the front, and we can see some of that black coming in right there. I'm going to cover that up real quick. If you look at how the figure is modeled, we got our shadows still coming through and our highlights. So what we're just trying to get in here effect wise, so we're not trying to dilute anything, we're not trying to make anything stand out less. We're actually trying to do the opposite. We're trying to make it stand out more. So once he is base coated, we are going to work on her base coat for the harpy, and then we are going to slowly start doing detailing. With him specifically, I'm going to do his face last. The reason being is because I plan on making his face as accurate as possible, down to the beak, showing that effect that the hair has, or the beak has, where on Cressels and most hawks it has a black tip, and it either slowly goes back, somewhat goes back, or is almost fully against the back of the head. So that's what we have for our base coat. I am going to base coat this wing again, just to make sure that all the shadow is still there, but also to make sure that that base coat is covered up nice and neat. Same with this one. And I'm just going around, I'm making sure that I did get everything on the miniature, such as his arms, his feet, everything like that. Because everything that can be painted is going to be painted. We don't want it to look splotchy. Okay, so he's done with his base coat. As you can see, it's not as vibrant as what I think a lot of people are thinking it's going to be, but it's a good starting point. And I just realized that the back of the spear did not get a base coat. That's why we always double check, make sure we got everything like that. Now he'll eventually start slowly cleaning up. What I mean by that is slowly over time he will start to show more through the colors, and his Zenithal highlights will become more prominent. So I'm just touching up the toes. But I think he has turned out pretty good so far. So let's get going to the base coat of our harpy. Like I said, I'm going to start her off with Barbarian Flesh. That's going to be a good tone into our wings too. So with the wings, I was sitting there debating on what color we would use for the wings. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do a blue, a red, a pink, a yellow, a green. I have chosen to use a blue. And you might be wondering, why are we gonna base the model in yellow or in Barbarian Flesh? That's because we're gonna cover up a lot of the skin tone, and the skin tone is what we really want to make sure is popping on her. So we're just gonna take our brush. We're gonna start to slowly get that on there. And with the Barbarian Flesh, what I've always loved about it is that it is a almost off-white. It's a peach, but it's also an off-white. And what I mean by an off-white is it still shows a lot of detail through itself. So I'm just going over the whole miniature. And we're going to do 2 coats of this, just like the other one. And the back of the wings is where you're really going to see the effect, because the back of her wings are more gray into black. I'm just brushing that over. I'm trying not to get the flesh to stick into the recesses. I'm trying to actually get the paint to stick to the model, because we don't want it sticking to the recesses, otherwise we lose that zenithal highlighting we worked so hard to achieve. We don't want to lose that. So, like I said, for her hair, I was going around and thinking, how are we gonna do it? What color we're gonna do? And I ultimately landed on blonde. So she's gonna be blonde with the Zenithal highlighting and the base coating of the barbarian flesh. We're going to easily achieve that effect. So what I'm doing here, like I said a few moments ago, is I'm just going over the entire miniature. I'm trying to make sure that all the recesses aren't being covered up by the paint, but I'm also trying to make sure that I get every recess I can, or not recess, every bit of miniature I can to have paint stick to it. So what you see me doing now is I'm just trying to make sure I get paint in all the right places. I'm going to do a second coat on the back of the wings now. Now when painting Zenithal highlights, you want to move your brush from the area that has the most light downward. And like I said, this one almost turned into somewhat of a wash, which isn't an issue since we are Zenithal highlighting. That's kind of like, that's almost what we want. But it was thinned down a little too much for my liking when it comes to Zenithal highlighting. But that's not an issue. What we're trying to do is make sure that if there is any black showing through, that it's more of in a recessed area and not like on the actual figure. Okay, so I'm going to let her dry for a bit. And that is what we have going so far with her. So remember with her, she was her front was the one that we painted the Zenithal highlighting on. We are going to let her dry, and once she is dry, we will come back in episode 3 and do the next level that we're going to be doing, and I'm leaning closer to her outfit. The reason we're going to do the outfit is because that's the next biggest portion besides the wings. The wings we might do. I just don't want to. Well, I'm looking it over real quick. You know what? Yeah, we're going to do the wings on her next. And the reason being is because I want to make sure that we get that going. The Zenithal highlighting, or the flesh, the barbarian flesh, was more specifically for her hair and her skin tones, her skin. In the next video, we will do her wings, and we will begin working on the Aarakocras. Look at him real quick. Side. Yeah, we'll start working on his armor next. I would say the wings, but that's part of his body. I'm gonna leave the body for last because I gotta go. We gotta do. Yeah, we're gonna do the armor first because the body we're gonna have a little bit more detail. For instance, on American Crestals, about right where the neck lines up, it gets lighter. So we're gonna have to do a blend there. And then he's got a blue stripe head. His eyes have an outline that comes down with that grayish blue. And then his wings have that blue on it, but his face, and I don't have a good picture of it with me, has a red spot on top, and then like the back of its neck is red, and so is a lot of its wing. Like down near here is where it's going to start getting to be a bluish gray as well. It kind of like blends in. It's a very beautiful bird if you have ever seen it. That is what we got going on. We got our Aarakocra fully base coated. And we got our harpy over here drying. You can already see the effect that we're trying to go for, because the skin tone is done. It's a little bit darker, and that's kind of like what we want, because we're going to be doing highlighting and everything like that. I'm going to show you how to on skin, how to make a muscular contortion, for instance on her shoulders, and then after we do the wings, we will do the clothes on her. And then we'll do her hair. And then we will do any highlighting on her that we need to do. With him, we are going to do the armor first. Then we are going to move on to his detailing on his body. And we might do the spear before the detailing on the body, because the detailing on the body is going to be kind of incorporated into detailing the face and everything like that with him. With that being said, thank you for watching today's video. If you have a chance, please like and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification icon to get updates every time we upload. We did just start a TikTok as well as an Instagram. I'm going to be putting the links in the video description below. And then please check out our Fiverr store, our Etsy store, our Patreon, and our Facebook page. All that will be found also in the description of our channel. And with that being said and done, thank you for watching Scarecrow Miniature Painting. Have a great night.